Hello, everybody. We're happy to have you here. Thank you for joining us. The webinar will begin in a couple minutes. Hello again. We are just waiting for more people to join. Then we will get started. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome for this wonderful webinar. And I want to ask our wonderful panelists to put their camera on and to get started. There you go. So I'm going to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, all around the world. We're very excited to have this panel today. We have three wonderful Stevens Initiative alumni coming to you from different parts, from Morocco, from UAE, from the US. And I'm very happy to have them with us today to talk about the virtual exchange experience, but also to tell you why it matters, and as well as for educators and institutions who are interested in planning virtual exchange programs. There's definitely a lot of insights that's going to happen today. So we have Amira Ihardan from American University of Sharjah. We have Yunus Mizmani from Hassan II University. And then we have Sophia Rodriguez from University of Florida. So Amira, Sophia, and Yunus, please introduce yourself. So I'll start with Amira. Go ahead. Do you want to unmute yourself?
Sorry for that. Hi, good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, wherever you are. My name is Amira Ihardan. I'm an undergraduate student currently in my second year at the American University of Sharjah. So my experience with the Stevens Initiative is that I spoke before at another webinar on my experience with the virtual exchange program with Portland State University. And it was a very rewarding and interesting program, and so excited to be here and look forward to speaking with you all today.
Thank you, Amira. Yunus, do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Absolutely. Good day, everyone. My name is Yunus Mizmani, and I'm currently a postgraduate student in the last year of my master's studies. I've been a participant in the virtual exchange program twice. So this is my second time participating in a virtual exchange program, and I'm happy to be here and to talk to you all about it.
Thank you, Yunus. And Sophia, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. My name is Sophia Rodriguez. I am a third-year business administration and international studies student at the University of Florida, and I want to tell you a little bit more about my exchange that I participated in. I was in the Enactus Entrepreneurial Exchange, as well as it was also called the Global Fellowship Program.
Thank you, Sophia. As our dear audience can see, we did not plan to all wear black. We were just talking right before getting here that all of us are wearing black. But it's so nice to have you here. And I want to start with a very simple question. Give us 3 words that describe your virtual exchange experience. Not a phrase, 3 words. So I'm going to start with Eunice. Go ahead, Eunice.
I would say fun, interesting, and eye-opening.
Nice. I always like the fun part. Sophia, do you want to tell us 3 words?
Yeah, so my 3 words would probably be powerful, captivating, and magnificent.
Thank you. Amira?
My words would probably be revealing, rewarding, and discipline.
Discipline. I'm definitely going to dig a little bit more on that later on. So if you had, I mean, you have a lot of friends, and when you were doing this virtual exchange experience, if you had to describe this virtual exchange experience that you had to your friend, how would you do that? What would you say? Anybody can start.
I mean, I would definitely tell them that there's 2 sides to everything. There's the challenge of working with people abroad, but the reward that you get from it outweighs that challenge. The way I describe it was probably 10 times funner than your normal group projects. You know, it's 10 times more interesting than your regular group project. It captivates you and it engages you in a way that a normal group project doesn't, because we're used to it. It becomes the mundane. This is something, out of the ordinary. And so it pushes us to be better equipped, better prepared, and also to dig deeper when we're doing things like our research, because we're seeing things not only from our perspective, but from international perspective.
And Amira, I mean, how I got to know you was when I saw the video. So your team worked with the team in Portland State University on collaborating together. Can you explain a little bit more on what did you do?
Okay, so our project was basically highlighting the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals for 2030, which is basically like the set of goals for how we can improve the world. So there's a lot of things like targets like, world hunger, access to education for all, poverty, economic welfare. And the one that we wanted to focus on was education and improving education and quality education for all in Libya. And we chose Libya because at the moment, that goal seems like, so it seems impossible from, the current circumstances in the country. And we wanted to really tackle it in not just talking about the kind of steps you can take, but rather having an action plan. And, we knew right from the start that we wanted to create a video because we had a presentation plan and, we could either do a presentation or a video. And we wanted to really show people and let them visualize how we can turn just this kind of ambiguous goal into a real 10-year action plan in some, in a circumstance that would seem almost impossible, and how we can utilize the nation's resources and things like, their wealth of oil reserves, etc., in that goal.
And I'm really curious to come back to this later, because one beautiful thing about virtual exchange, it puts you in the reality. The reality of our world today is that there are no walls. We are going to be working with international people across, as we're doing right now with Zoom or with any other platform. But virtual exchange puts you in that situation. You got to work with Americans and Portland State, and actually, create a work plan. So that's very exciting to hear. I want to move to Sophia. Sophia, tell us, I know the Enactus entrepreneurship program, which you did from online, and you collaborated as well with the Moroccans from the Enactus Morocco. But if you had to describe that virtual exchange experience to a friend of yours, what would you say?
Yeah, so definitely as a student, I definitely wanted to enhance my intercultural competence, especially having a Hispanic background and wanting to work internationally. It was a great way to get started into the field without like the threat of cost, because that's one of like the big things that virtual exchange has. It opens up more opportunities given that we're all virtual. And it actually, I feel like it connects us more because it's more accessible in our emerging world. So there was many things that made it very amazing. And it actually gave me a lot of exposure, and it's actually ignited an internship to evolve from like a partnership that we had in our virtual exchange program. So I think that was really cool that I have an internship set out in this upcoming summer. And I talked about an experience that I had in my virtual exchange. So it's crazy how powerful the exchange took a toll on me, and how I will tell more people about it because it was a great experience as a whole.
Thank you, Sophia. I mean, that's the thing that we talk about a lot as Stevens Initiative is how can virtual exchange bring these global competencies, right? What are you, when you are done with your college experience, what are you bringing to the world? So this is, as you were saying, this is a great kind of entry into the internship that you're going to be doing. Eunice, do you want to go ahead and give us your opinion?
Absolutely. But if I were to talk about my experience with a friend of mine, I think I would emphasize more the fun part, and I know you love the fun part. But for me, it is a fun way for anyone to learn about new country and new people. I mean, you can have the choice of reading a book, or you can talk to people and learn through their stories and through just communicating with them. And along the way, it's not just about the fun and about the stories. I mean, along the way, as Sophia said, you get to learn a lot of skills, and especially skills related to intercultural communication. And of course, these skills are not really skills that you feel immediately, but in the long run, you feel that you are equipped to talk and to just engage in dialogue with people from all around the world, and you don't feel that awkwardness or just that feeling of apprehension from talking to new people, and that's something that I find to be very valuable.
Yeah, thank you, Eunice. I think there's a lot of different institutions out there, organizations, teachers, faculty that are thinking about virtual exchange. They want to plan. Some of them are running virtual exchange. So I think your input is so valuable. What are some of the things that you think are important for them to pay attention to, right? Something that you've experienced in your virtual exchange experience in your virtual exchange that were really great, that where you said it changed my life, or particular aspect, but that could be a great tip or a great advice for somebody who's watching us right now and saying, I want to plan something for our youth.
Yeah, I guess I could answer that one. Well, for me personally, what I noticed a lot with these programs is that people can sometimes lose sight of their objectives. So it is very important to keep in mind the objectives of the program you're planning to run. So for me, it depends on whether you are putting communication as first objective. So in that case, I mean, the communication part should be your focus. So I would say the topic of the program itself should be secondary, but the communication should be central to your program. But if it's the other way around, I mean, if the communication already exists and the objective is to establish some kind of cooperation, whether it be academic, scientific, or any kind of cooperation, I mean, then you can the communication is already there, so you don't really need to focus on that. You can rather focus on the product or the project you're planning on doing. So it just depends on whether the objective is to actually establish communication or just encourage people to learn about each other, or the objective is to work on some kind of project. So I think those two types of programs are the two main types that I would classify. And the second thing that I've heard a lot
Sorry
of.
to interrupt you. I'm just really interested so that our audience have a better understanding. So when you're talking about communication, what do you mean? Is it you're talking about communication between the Moroccan, for instance, in your case, Moroccan youth with US youth? What exactly? Can you elaborate a little bit more?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't mean just Moroccans and Americans. I mean, you have two nationalities, so people from two different countries. So what I mean is that whether you want two people who know nothing about each other, and you would like the objective to be those people from those two nationalities to learn more about each other. So as a first step of establishing that kind of dialogue between two people who know nothing about each other. So that's the first type that I mentioned. And the second type is, for example, programs between university students who already have some knowledge about the other country, the people they're talking with. So those kinds of programs serve to deepen their communication through working on various projects. So that's what I was talking about.
Yeah, thank you. So I think it's being more clear about your objectives. It's very important that the institutions beforehand understand what are you trying to get out of this. Do you want the youth to establish that intercultural dialogue? So it might be like a little bit more basic, but still very important.
Exactly.
Or is it, if it's more complex, how can we, if they already know something about the other country, how can we make it even more interesting? That's very interesting, Eunice.
Exactly.
Anybody want to chip in, Sophia or Amira?
I mean, I just would definitely elaborate on what Eunice said about communication. I think for any kind of virtual exchange program or project, communication is the central factor. I think what I was fortunate enough to learn from this project was that there are a million ways to communicate with people, but you have to pursue them, and there are a million tools. And I was lucky enough that my professor at the time was urging us and reinforcing, the use of those tools. And our project was set out in like installments. So there was, a consistent reinforcement of the goals of our project, our objectives, what we needed to complete. So that was really helpful and really beneficial. I think one very important thing was that they had us do preparatory meetings, like where we got to see and meet and, socialize with the people who we were going to be working with, because that helped to break down misconceptions we had about one another. And there were quite a few. We were working with students from the US. So for us, there was a lot of questions about, the degree of English speaking. And, from us towards their side, there was like a lot of questions about, knowledge of global affairs and everything. We wanted to see how much we both knew. We weren't sure. So having our professors urge us to socialize with one another before we actually got down to work together was really important. And definitely that's, a piece of advice for anyone planning a virtual exchange program.
That's such a great point. I know that part of this always comes up in our Stevens Initiative Impact and Learning Report, this idea of given space and time for people to get to know each other, because that's where it all starts. We can talk about projects and what they're going to collaborate on, but they just need to get to know each other, just like you're going to meet somebody for the first time. So Amira, you're saying that that's very important, that the organizers or whoever is planning virtual exchange should be thinking about giving that space to not only getting to know each other, but understanding, what are those, sometimes stereotypes or misconceptions or before you get started. And the second thing you talked about is that there was this sense of structure, right? Where there was this check-in. You felt that the organizer or the faculty or the professor in this case was having constant communication with the students, and that helped to make sure that communication wasn't lost. So I really appreciate that. That's a great tip, Amira. Sophia, do you want to go ahead and give us some of your wonderful tips?
Yeah. So one of the things that I think is the most important in when it comes to formulating a virtual exchange or gaining awareness for a virtual exchange is PR, like public relations. So like, especially having like merchandise that helps people feel connected and a sense of community, it's super valuable because it kind of creates that tangible factor in something that you're building that is intangible, if that makes sense. And also the partnerships that we have with the big companies, especially in the Enactus Entrepreneurial Exchange, were extremely powerful because they are powerful technological companies in the United States. And being exposed that these companies want to give back and foster innovation, it kind of gives that corporate social responsibility to these companies to give back. And these partnerships have been very beneficial for me and my future development.
Yeah, definitely. I think that there is this notion, even for when we're thinking about virtual exchange, when you plan it, what happens next? You might get some funding, but then I think what you're talking about, Sophia, is from the start, you're letting everybody know this virtual exchange experience, what's happening, the whole community is involved, and that helps actually with sustaining this type of and benefit even more students. So yeah, thank you all. These are really great. I think that there's another aspect of, so we have planning virtual exchange, and for our viewers out there, a very important part of virtual exchange is facilitation. Facilitation is key. Number one, because that's how when a facilitator is there with the students, they understand those learning goals, they understand their challenges. Sometimes there are difficult conversations, and it is part of virtual exchange. How do we navigate those difficult conversations? How do we, sometimes we have information that's coming to us, but we don't know how to process it. So I'm very curious from your perspective, when we're talking about virtual exchange facilitators, and how they're involved in the program. What are some of the things you can advise, or things that you felt, okay, this would be like really great for a virtual exchange facilitator to have? Can you tell us a little bit your perspective on that?
That's such a great question. That's such a difficult question as well. I think the role of facilitator is the hardest role. It's by far the hardest role and the hardest task to do in an intercultural setting, especially with people who are not really familiar with the people they're talking to and their background as well. It's really, it's tough to navigate the first few conversations, especially when there are a lot of differences. Not so much. I mean, it has to do with language, and it has to do with just the perspective that you have on certain issues, because not all people see the same thing from the same lens. So it's very important for a facilitator to be able to kind of explain how other people think about the same thing, and to explain that there are multiple perspectives, and what you think about something is not really what all people think about the same thing. So it's really, as a first step in any intercultural communication, it's really important to establish a few ground rules and a few boundaries when it comes to how to communicate with other people who may think differently from how you think. So these ground rules kind of ensure that there's some level of respect and some level of understanding when it comes to how people think.
Yes, ground rules and norms. It's so crucial, because I think what the beautiful thing about virtual exchange is that you give this space for people to be free to talk, so that they can learn from each other. But like you were saying, Eunice, providing that framework of making sure that exchange is happening in a respectful manner, on kind of a mechanism. What happens if this happens? So I really like that. Amira or Sophia, do you want to add to this question?
I would just like to contribute the fact that I think facilitators, should really focus on livening, the virtual exchange program, making it more alive, giving opportunities for social interaction, whether that's through social media, whether that's through meetings, whether that's just through following up with the students taking part in it, you know. I think I, as a student personally, really appreciate when a professor asks and checks up on a project, you know. So livening it up is definitely the way to go. And also, with regards to keeping the length, like, you know, I appreciated the length of my virtual exchange program because it was about a month, you know. It was enough time for me to get to know the people I was working with, to actually, you know, not know them just on a like a work basis, but also like on a kind of personal basis, and to understand how they worked. I think that's really important, is having enough time to understand how they work, because we have to keep in mind these are people who are coming from a completely different background to us, you know. So having that time and also having that liveliness to it is definitely important.
Yeah, thank you, Amira. You mentioned a lot of the things that always come up. Many students, you know, you can't get to know each other in a very short period, and that's the key about our virtual exchange program, is it's sustained, it's over time. Otherwise, it's just one conversation. You can't get a lot from one conversation. So definitely, Amira. Sophia, do you want to address this question as well?
Yeah, so kind of like what Amita said, like the timing is everything when it comes to meeting people. And especially like in my exchange, I think it was great that we had like the perfect balance of American perspective and Moroccan perspective, because you get the opportunity to hear both sides, and they got to understand where we were coming from and our values, while also we heard a lot more about their values. And like Eunice has mentioned earlier, you learn more about a person's culture by talking to them sometimes than even a textbook. And this gives you an opportunity to connect on more of a value-based approach rather than a textbook definition of what a country is and what kind of practices they have. And I think that's extremely valuable, and especially understanding how more of their culture works. So I really connected with the Moroccans because we both use WhatsApp. WhatsApp is great, you know? And so I communicate with my family on there. And I think that was really cool, because like a lot of the traditional American ideal is to use messages or Messenger, you know, on Facebook. But WhatsApp is kind of like the transparent form of communication for many other countries besides the US. So I think it was really cool that I saw that transcend, because I have that both of those approaches. So it kind of showed like, it was really cool.
Yeah, I know we talked about tools, right? This was a big part of virtual exchange, is you want to communicate with your counterpart and communicate effectively. And one of the things that all of you had to navigate is what tools can we use? So I know Amira mentioned how important it was for, you know, the professor that helps kind of navigate, like say, okay, here are the tools that are available, you know, how can we, and then what you're saying with Sophia is that sometimes you just use whatever you have, and you know, as you speak with your counterparts, with the youth, kind of say, well, I actually prefer this, can we use this? And I think that that's what's beautiful about virtual exchange, is it's diversity. There's no one way of doing things, and even in all of your programs, there's different types of models. So I know we are like pressed on time. There's so many questions I want to ask you guys,
if I may.
Sorry, Eunice, go ahead.
I just wanted to add something, just touching on the topic of time. I mean, as both Amira and Sophia said, it's very important to give students enough time to know each other, but it's also important to keep in mind not to give them too much time, or not to make the course too long, because it is very tempting sometimes to kind of think about making a project very long because of how the conversation may be. But it's very difficult to plan a very long course, and at the same time, it's very difficult to keep students engaged in a very long course. So it's very important to keep the balance between just enough time and make sure it's not too much.
So I'm going to thank you, Eunice. This is a very important point. And I'm going to ask one question for whoever wants to answer it. What was something you were hesitant about when when you find out about this virtual exchange program? What were something you were hesitant about? You're like, or maybe you got into it and you said, oh my God, what did I get myself into? And how did you overcome it? If I can just have one person answer that would be great. Otherwise, I'm gonna pick.
I go.
Amira. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Amira.
Oh, sorry. So I think the first thing that came to mind was difference. I was like, how are we gonna these people when they're like, it's almost a 12-hour time difference. When we're up, they're asleep. When we're asleep, they're up, you know. But I think immediately, like from the get-go, we just realized we have to work around this, you know. We have to find suitable times, we have to make adjustments. And that's one of the really valuable things this program teaches you, is that there are ways to overcome things, even with people who are on a completely opposite, you know, time schedule to you. And, you know, just back to that thing of communication, where like we had to settle on a common ground because, you know, they were using different communication tools to us. We wanted to use email, for example. And, you know, they're not really checking up on the emails. So we all settled, we're all going to get the Google Chats app on our phone, and this is for this project. And it was through that, you know, we learned to utilize those tools. And yeah, we took advantage of whatever times we had that were suitable to both of us. And so you learn how to work around things. There is no obstacle that you can't overcome.
I think this is such an important point, Amira, and I want to say that it is a journey. I think sometimes we get so caught up sometimes on like, we have to get this project done, but virtual exchange is about that journey. What are you learning? What are the challenges? How did you solve those challenges with your, you know, counterparts? And I mean, this is International, you know, Education Week, which is very exciting. And I want to end, I'm getting my 5-minute warm in, you guys. I want to end on what is, if you want everybody, you wish everybody want to know one thing that's great about virtual exchange, what would it be? And I'll start with Sophia. Go ahead, Sophia.
Yeah, so virtual exchange is extremely impactful. I've learned like the value of like just giving back and like understanding like you have the ability to make a difference, and innovation is so important in this upcoming world, you know, rather it be like whenever it was COVID, like a lot of people have lost hope, and this gave me an opportunity to make a change, you know, especially in a society that fosters innovation, is constantly working towards progression, and virtual exchange kind of facilitates that and really gives people that opportunity to make the difference that they wish to see in the world, as Gandhi once said. You know, I really believe in the quote, like, be the change you wish to see in the world. And this virtual exchange really exposed me to people that literally are right there up my alley, you know, very much who believe in the same values that I do, like sharing language, international understanding. And these are very valuable skills that are going to be more and more important as our workforce is going to continuously change beyond the pandemic.
Thank you, Sophia. Amira?
For me, it was kind of like learning the value of representation. You know, you're representing yourself, you're representing your university, and that's one of the really motivating factors with the virtual exchange, is that you're no longer just yourself in a group of people, you're yourself and your institution, you know. And also everyone is relying on one another, you know. There is this like sort of shared camaraderie. Everyone is reliant on the other. There, you know, if one person sets his back, it affects the group. And so you learn to develop a sense of responsibility that's different to regular projects, regular group work. And also the fact that, you know, we were working on a project that was education focused. So at that time, especially, I felt really fortunate to have an access to high quality education. And especially with the opportunity that it brought me with the virtual exchange.
And Eunice, before you give your answer, I just want to let everybody know, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A box, and then we'll get to them right after Eunice kind of tells us what is great about virtual exchange. Go ahead, Eunice.
I mean, for me, the best thing that that I find about virtual exchange programs or intercultural communication in general is developing that sense of empathy. And it's learning about other people, and it's learning about new perspectives. And I always focus on the idea of new perspectives, because a lot of the time, and almost always, I learn from people who disagree with me more than I learn from people who agree with me. because people who disagree offer new perspectives and new outlooks on issues that I've never really looked at from a different perspective, from a different lens. So that allows me a new understanding of something that I've never been aware of. And that's, for me, the main value of any intercultural communication. It's the ability to have people who offer new outlooks and new ways of thinking. And so that, for me, is what it's the heart of intercultural communication, and it's what makes us better human beings.
Thank you so much, Eunice. Thank you all. This was so wonderful. So we have some questions for you. Our first question is, how do you think virtual exchange program can best use their alumni network, whether for recruiting participants, helping facilitate programs, or training the facilitators, or some other way? And this is open for the three of you. So whoever want to answer the question, go ahead.
I would say in terms of for alumni, helping facilitators organize, virtual exchange programs, giving feedback. I think there is no better place to look for feedback, because we've been through it and we know what worked and what didn't work. Yeah, I think that I myself would definitely be more than willing to help with future virtual exchange programs, just because I know the amount of effort that goes into it and the amount that students care. As a student, I noticed everyone in our group really cared towards contributing and towards, highlighting their skills. So easing this process, I think we definitely can give a lot of input into that.
And
yeah,
I was going to say we met some alumni when we came to Morocco. So do you want to tell us a little bit more?
Absolutely. I mean, I completely agree with what Amira has said. I mean, all alumni are able to offer a lot of expertise when it comes to virtual exchange program, not just the part about planning programs, what works, what doesn't work, what goes wrong, what can go wrong, what are the challenges that students face or during these programs. It's also expertise when it comes to intercultural communication, how to communicate with other people, how to engage in dialogue. So all these are skills that are now very much in demand and are things that I think most virtual exchange alumni possess.
And there's another question from our audience, and I know we talked a little bit about it, but just as a virtual exchange participant, how do you address these issues of time zone difference? Especially, I know, Amira, you mentioned 12, but how do you actually manage those difficulties, especially when you have sometimes, the international teams? Anybody want to address the time difference issue?
I don't think to address that. Yeah, but Eunice, go ahead first.
No, go ahead, please.
Okay. It happens.
Yeah.
I would
just say that we were definitely splitting up the times evenly. I mean, for example, if we have to do the 8 a.m. so that they can have 8 p.m., it's suitable for both, It might be a little inconvenient on our side to be a Friday morning, 8 a.m., but whatever works, honestly. You have to learn to work around these issues. And you have to use the tools that you have, like I mentioned, Google Chat, emails, and also learning to be on top of that. That's a skill that I learned, luckily, in my first semester of university, was learning to be on top of your emails. And it's not a skill that a lot of people develop soon enough, but I'm glad that I really learned how to use that skill in the beginning. So now when I have a normal group project, I know about all these tools. I know about all these ways to work around things. Okay, we can't meet in person. We can schedule a Zoom session for then. Yeah, it's challenging at first, but you learn to adapt, like with anything.
Yes, Eunice, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree. For us, the time zone difference wasn't as extreme. It was only 5-6 hours, depending on daylight savings. But yeah, it's still the exact same issues. There's some sort of compromise and some sort of sacrifice involved when it comes to planning anything, just because of the time difference. And one thing that I've also actually found to be very helpful is being a bit tech savvy and being able to work with many platforms with and being able to walk people through those platforms as well, to be able to help them, because a lot of people, sometimes a lot of students can be are new to certain platforms, and they kind of need the help to be able to use them. So being tech savvy and being able to work with a lot of things and being versatile is a big plus when it comes to planning things.
I think there's a Sophia, your program with Enactus was all about entrepreneurship, and you mentioned that you think your virtual exchange program helped to get you an internship too. Were there any particular parts most valuable for translating into real world experience? So it's kind of a follow-up. Do you think having entrepreneurial experience factored into that?
Yeah, I think it's really powerful. Like kind of what Eunice said, being like tech savvy is so important, and especially like using a lot of these websites. Like the internet is so global now, and using it to our advantage. Using applications like WhatsApp, Google Slides, all of that kind of stuff, because many people have Gmail addresses now, and especially that's a great form of communication. And so that has been really powerful, especially me working with the facilitators of my virtual exchange, because they scheduled the programming, especially during like times that were flexible for Moroccans and Americans on Eastern Standard Time, or where Enactus is located is in the central time zone of the United States. So it really helped whenever it was building, especially our programming to enhance our project. That's kind of, we usually created meetings after those meetings from our virtual programming, probably like an hour after, or after that meeting ended. So I think it really helped in fostering that communication and make sure that that constant flow, because many people were attending this scheduled programming, and especially it just created a sense of schedule and routine, you know, to ignite the fire and the flame. And especially, like I said, this experience has been so incredibly valuable. It has helped me find an internship. There was one of the partnerships that Enactus had, I think, was Intuit's Design for Delight program, and it helped us build the business model canvas on building. And these are very important skills that startups even use whenever they're building their product or service that's going to better our world. And so I talked about that in my interview, and I bet that no one else in that interview probably had that skill, because I think that these virtual exchanges are so valuable. We just need to get the word out, and I think it's so powerful.
And what's great, Sophia, is that not only did you learn about it during the Enactus Entrepreneurial Virtual Exchange Program, but you got to build the business plan and the business canvas with it. It wasn't American versus Morocco. You had a cross-cultural team, Moroccans and US, planning together and putting together a business plan. And that's really amazing.
Yes, it was incredible.
So I have another question from our wonderful audience. Please keep them coming. How did you start getting to know your peers or get to a place where you could trust and collaborate with them? Was there an icebreaker to start the virtual exchange, or how else did your teacher make this work? That's a great question.
But if I may, from my personal experience, I don't think there's much of an issue with communicating with our partners and just establishing dialogue. I think it was organic, to say in those words. I mean, it was a pretty organic experience. We just introduce each other, and just through conversation about a certain topic. So we started to know each other more, and just from outside the program, just chatting, and that fosters a really good relationship. So I mean, personally, I really didn't need much time to actually get to know my partners from the US university.
Yeah, and I think Eunice, I mean, your program, Women's Leadership in Virtual Exchange, where you had two parallels. You had to go out there and find a woman leader in Morocco and do that whole process of research and interview, as well as, you know, put in a profile. And in parallel, you had an American on the other side doing that, but then you come together and you collaborate. So you had a lot of time for interacting, you know, together and talking about those experiences, which is really great.
Yeah, exactly. We had approximately 8 weeks, the whole program, and we had some time to just talk about our experiences looking for women to interview, and the process of putting together a story and the whole thing. So it was a very good way to kind of establish that dialogue and to talk about something that we had in common. And we had a lot of difficulties in common, I'll tell you that.
Nice. Anybody want to address this idea of how did you get to know your peers? I know, Amira, you mentioned how you had this preparatory meeting. Can you tell us a little bit, you know, did the facilitator do the actual icebreaker, or was it more kind of organic, like Eunice was saying?
Yeah, actually the facilitators offered us like an icebreaker, and it was like a Google Meet where we had where we were just introduced to everyone. Everyone said their name and their major and everything. And then we were taken to breakout rooms, and it was in rotation. So you basically got to meet everyone. And that was very helpful, especially with urging us, you know, when you're selecting our groups, to get to know each other, get each other's contact. If there was someone you liked, you got their contact quickly so that you could later go back to them and be like, okay, let's sign up for a group together. And we also had, as worth like a little tiny percentage of the grade, was a personal artifact video where we all had to get together for a meeting, you know, initiate a meeting before we started working on the project, and share, you know, something personal to us, to our culture, our heritage, or just ourselves. And that was really beneficial because it sparked some really engaging conversations with all of us. Yeah, I think it was those two things that really pushed us to go and have meetings. I mean, we had a certain number of meetings we were required to have, but my group definitely had more than that. I mean, my group probably had triple that. And I think without those initial meetings, we probably wouldn't have been as motivated to meet with one another. I think the professors had a really big role in that, and very, very thankful to the professors who organized that for me. I think they did an excellent job in everything, especially with urging us to collaborate with one another.
Yeah, Amira, your program was part of the Connected Classrooms, you know, virtual exchange program. So I'm very familiar with the cultural artifact because I was with your professor doing it, and it's such a great exercise when you get to ask people about something that means something to them. It brings that personal side. So I think those kind of icebreakers are very important. Sorry, anybody want to add anything to that question before we move to the next one? Okay, Sophia?
Yeah, I'm going to say a little bit about like the Enactus Entrepreneurial Exchange. Yeah, so we had a project manager. She was kind of like our program manager, and she had a social entrepreneurship organization in Morocco. And so she kind of like, she helped me and especially my group break the ice, as we say, you know, especially like getting to know each other and like finding each other on social media. Like the people that I have on my virtual exchange group we still communicate on Instagram and Facebook. And these are websites that, if anything, I've just noticed if we use them for good reason, we can connect on a so much deeper level, especially they get constant updates about my life and how I'm exploring new areas and exploring new opportunities. And especially these mentors are great because they help you build your personal and your professional development. So they kind of help ignite that sense of leadership, the sense of expanding outward. And especially like that really helped me. And so I still keep in contact with my mentor to this day, because I told her, I was like, if I'm ever in Morocco, I'll come and visit you. And so we were super, like, it's super exciting that maybe that might become a reality in the near future.
Yeah. I think that this is for also for our audience to know. One of the things that virtual exchange does is it does create those meaningful meaningful relationship. I think sometimes we think about, oh, I have to meet a person in person, in person to be able to, have that strong relationship and strong bond with them. But it is possible through virtual exchange because, like you were saying, Sophia, this is a friend, this is a friend that you can visit when you come here. So that's wonderful to hear. I have another question, and it's regarding, so this is the exact question. We often hear that time management issues cause stress and lead to lagging motivation or engagement from students who have many other activities and priorities outside of the program, while on a virtual exchange. So I know Eunice touched a little bit on that. Do you have any ideas about what virtual exchange facilitators can do to help students who experience this? And I know
I think this is
a little bit, right? Like when you said, don't make it way too long. So go ahead.
I think this is a great question. I'm going to talk a bit about my own experience in my program, because we did face this issue with students who had conflicting schedules, who had to work at the same time. And so what we did was kind of divide the group according to which time preferences depending on their schedule. So we had groups who, for example, met with their partners in the afternoons, and we had groups who were prepared to meet with the US partners in the evenings. So our evenings are their afternoons. So we kind of divided this according to people, according to the different times in which people were available, and that worked wonderfully. You could operate on the basis of pairs or mini groups of 3, 4, even 5 students, just to be a lot flexible. And so a flexible planning really helps when it comes to just managing time and managing students according to their schedules. And it's very important to keep a very flexible schedule. And the great thing about virtual experience is the flexibility that it offers, because you can meet in the evenings. It's not like you have to stick to a certain schedule because the facility is not going to be working. So you can conduct meetings in the evening, and even with the constraints of schedules and time zones, it is very much possible if you're prepared to do that.
Thank you, Eunice. Anybody want to add?
Yes, definitely. So for us, one of the things that Eunice touched on, I wanted to elaborate on, was the fact that I mentioned earlier, having to use tools. And one of the things was that whenever on the group we couldn't settle on a time, what we would do is we would use a survey to figure it out. You would propose a lot of different timings, and everyone would select one, and the ones that got all the matches. So basically, we were using technology to help us there. Because for our group, we had, for example, there was a mother with kids who worked 2 jobs, and and also learning to share the burden amongst you, be understanding of people's differences, and learn communication. That was key. Is that when someone has a priority or they have something, they communicate it with the group. So we know ahead of time. We understand this person is going to do the work. They're not going to be present for this meeting, maybe, but we're going to brief them after. Those were really important things, briefing each other after meetings, learning to do that, learning to put the main points of a meeting onto a document or into an email. So if anyone had to leave early or missed it or missed the beginning, they were always caught up. And technology is 100%, the best thing for that. And that's why it's also so convenient. You can join anywhere, anytime a meeting from your phone, from your laptop, from whatever resource you have. It's one of those things you have to learn to adapt to. At first, you might not be good at it, but at the end, you will be amazing at it. And it's a skill that you keep, definitely.
Well, that brings me to my question, my last question. I'm very sad to leave. I think we can keep going and talking about this forever. But my last question to you, what is just one skill that you feel you have acquired from this experience and that's gonna help you in the future? You can't say more than one, sorry. Just one skill. I'll give you some time to think about it.
I would say intercultural communication, by far.
Very nice, yes. So intercultural communication. It's okay if you have the same one, no worries.
I would say perseverance.
Perseverance, I love that.
Time management.
Time management. So intercultural communication, perseverance, time management. That is so amazing. I am so proud of all of you. We're so happy to have you part of the Stevens Initiative Alumni. And most importantly, I'm so happy for our audience. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you got some insight from our wonderful panelists. And thank you all for your time, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you
Bye.
very much. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
I really enjoyed taking part in this, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.